Hey there, welcome back to the Nourished CEO Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Schoenfeld, and today's episode is all about AI. So, I wanted to share with you how I am personally adapting to the rise of artificial intelligence in my online business. AI has been something that started to trickle in maybe like a couple years ago. And then in the last, I don't know, 6 months or something, it has just exploded. And it's really changing exponentially quickly. It is getting more and more prevalent. More and more people are using it. The power of these tools is growing exponentially. So I've been in business online for over 10 years now. I'm trying to remember. I think like at this point, we're going on to 12 years of online business ownership. I have never seen anything change so quickly, especially something that is not going to go away. I've seen trends come and go, things like Periscope, or I'm trying to remember that one app we all used, that Clubhouse. I was like, what is it called? Clubhouse, the one that kind of exploded during COVID. And then all of a sudden, I mean, I don't know anyone who uses it. I'm not sure if people still use it. But there's a lot of trends like that, right? That come and go very quickly. They explode onto the scene. Everybody's using it. And then it's like not really a thing anymore. Other things like Instagram come on kind of slowly and build and build. And then as of May of 2025, it's something that is being used by most people, right? So it's not like it was this thing that just all of a sudden came onto the scene, but it is something that's very prevalent and still being used 10 plus years later in online businesses. AI is one of those things that came on real fast as far as I'm concerned. I don't know, there might be some people who feel like it was working behind the scenes for a while, but I feel like the way that it's shown up in day-to-day use for the average person and the average entrepreneur has totally exploded in the last 6 to 12 months. And what's unusual about AI is I feel like this is one of those tools that is not going anywhere. It's not going away. They're not going to put that toothpaste back in the tube, as they say. And if anything, it's just going to be more and more prevalent. I know there's a lot of conversation around AI right now and the future of careers and jobs in general. I mean, if you have a job that AI can do better and faster and more of without needing to be paid, without needing time off, breaks, maternity leave, that kind of thing, then obviously that puts that particular job at risk. And I know there's been a lot of people that feel very afraid of what is happening with AI, and I do think that it's important to be cautious with AI. I'm sure I'll be talking more about AI in the future many times because again, it's not going anywhere, and if somebody can talk about social media nonstop in their business, AI is going to be just as much a part of the conversation as things like social media are. But all of that to say, it is something where it can be used in not a good way and not an ethical way. It can be used in a way that strips a lot of your agency and spiritual connection out of what you're doing. So that's the kind of stuff that I definitely plan to talk about. I'm not going to talk about it today because I really just want to share how I'm using AI and how I'm adapting. But it is something where it's not going anywhere. And if you're afraid of it, the best thing you can possibly do is to get over that and to realize that this is not going anywhere. It's just going to be more and more prevalent very quickly as time goes on. I would say in the next couple of years, even it's going to completely change everything that we're so used to. So, my hope is that this conversation will inspire you to use it, or if you're already using it, look for new ways to use it or look for ways to make sure that your business is not negatively affected by this change. Because, like I said, it's coming, it's here, it's getting more and more prevalent, and there's really nothing else we can do other than adapt. So I made that decision early on to adapt and benefit from AI. I think for me, a lot of it was just partially out of desperation. When it really started to become popular, I was pregnant, I have a toddler, I was running 2 group programs, and I only had 1 full-time team member and a couple of contractors supporting me. So I really, really needed the help as far as just getting more done in less time with less energy. So that's the main reason I started getting into using things like ChatGPT and other AI tools. But now that I've been using it for a while, I actually feel like there's so much stuff that can be done with it and it's so powerful. It doesn't replace me, but there's a lot of stuff that I'm using it for and doing with it that has actually allowed me to stay competitive in a market where my competitors may not have children, may be 15 years younger than me, may not even be married, may just have 40, 50, 100 hours a week to spend on their business, right? So I really didn't have a choice as far as adapting to the use of AI, but my goal was always to benefit from it. And the more that I've used it, the more it's actually been somewhat fun and exciting for me to see what's possible with this new tool that is now available for pretty much anyone. So I did want to take you behind the scenes a little bit as to where I'm moving my focus, my attention, my energy with this massive industry shakeup. As far as, everything changing, it's going to keep changing. I know it's going to keep changing. So I'm looking at what is happening right now, and I'm also looking at what's going to be happening in the future. So there's really three key ways that I am adapting to AI in my online business right now. And as I mentioned before, I'm sure I'll get into more conversations about AI. I'll probably go deeper onto each one of these at some point in another show, but I just wanted to give you a little peek behind the curtain as to what I'm doing with my business to make sure that AI doesn't basically replace me or that AI doesn't shut my business down, which I think is a totally reasonable thing to be concerned about if you are the kind of person who is selling information as your main value. Okay, so let's start with how we're using AI immediately in the business in a way that is not only helping me, but also helping my clients. At the end of the day, AI is not ever going to replace humans. I really believe that. Ideally, it's going to make us all more efficient and make it so that we don't all have to work as much. It's also going to make learning faster. It's going to make information easier to access. So I think theoretically, just the way that the internet made life mostly better, and there's some bad stuff on the internet, but mostly it's improved our lives as a society. I do think AI is going to do that as well. And I really don't think that the people who are smart about how to handle this change in the next few years are going to just lose their jobs, lose their livelihood as a coach or an expert. So that's my perspective. Of course, I could be wrong, but I do think that coaches are still going to be an extremely important part of the industry. Coaches, experts, consultants, practitioners, we are the ones that have the experience, have the actual lived experience, as well as experience working with clients that informs our perspective versus AI has to be trained by a person, people, by, collective knowledge. It's not going to have its own experience to pull from, its own perspective to pull from. So as far as those tools are concerned, we're using AI a lot in our business to take the stuff that is coming out of my brain and repurpose it, disseminate it, get it out to more people, get it out in different formats, and do that in a much faster way than we were ever able to before. So I'm not doing any original content through ChatGPT. I think that's where a lot of people go wrong is they want ChatGPT to come up with the ideas for them. I am coming up with the ideas and I am the source of the original perspective, the original idea, and the one that speaks the perspective and the experience that I have, whether that's on a podcast like this, to a one on one client, to a group program, wherever I'm sharing my wisdom and my expertise with other humans, that is where the original thought is coming from. And then we use ChatGPT to redistribute that idea or that content in different forms. So, written form, video form, audio form, all the different things that we can do to make my thought leadership reach more people. That's one of the main ways that we're using AI. Now, I'm also using AI to help my clients get better results. So I'm in the process of building different custom chatbots to help my clients get answers faster and to get support on what they're working on in a more immediate way. As fast as we are in our program, we're answering questions from our clients within a business day is what our promise is. That's still slower than a chatbot that can give you an answer in 10 seconds, right? And so we're actually training these bots to be able to provide coaching and help in the way that we would normally be providing it ourselves, but in just a get it immediately as soon as you're working on something and get it fast kind of experience, which again, no human can provide instant feedback to somebody. So basically, I want to provide this GPT that's trained on my knowledge, my perspective, what I know about serving clients in the health space, and to be able to support our clients in taking action faster because they don't have to wait even a business day to get help. So being able to do things like review their niche and their offer and their program design and being able to coach them on their sales calls, to be able to look at a transcript from a sales call and take 10 seconds to review the whole thing and then spit out this customized guidance around how to improve sales skills and how to increase the likelihood that somebody will buy in a future conversation, and to also provide follow-up guidelines and different things you can send to somebody after a sales conversation. That's all the kind of stuff that we're building for our clients inside of our NBA program. So again, it's trained based on my philosophy. It's trained on my perspective around ethical sales and being, especially in the health and wellness space, selling to regular people and not businesses. You just have to approach things differently than if you were selling B2B. And so I want to make sure all of our tools that we create are actually fully designed to support health experts, wellness experts, people who are working with real people. Not that business owners aren't real people, but it's a totally different market when you're selling to just any old customer versus somebody who actually looks at an expense as an investment in their business. So, all of that to say, we're using AI as tools to help me be in more places, essentially, is the best way for me to describe that. It's for me to be in more places in my marketing. So the content I'm putting out, whether that's email, social media, podcasts, other things that might end up being different in the future. I mean, there's so many different things that could come up with AI that I can now take my genius and get it out to more people in more formats. And then it's also a way for me to be more omnipresent in my program and to be able to get instant support to my customers, my clients, without them having to wait for me to get back to them, or even things like the sales call bot, for example. The reason I came up with that is because when I work with one-on-one clients, I've had a few of them ask me if I could listen to one of their sales calls and give them feedback. And I don't want to be harsh, and I love the one-on-one clients that I work with. So if you're one of my one-on-one clients and you've asked me for this before, please know that this is not me directing anything at you. But I don't think I have it in me to listen to a 45-minute, 1 hour sales call from a client. As much as I love my clients, I don't even like listening to my own sales calls, right? So I don't have time. I don't have energy. I really do not have the focus to be sitting there listening to somebody's sales call for that long, just being honest. So the fact that I could train this chatbot on my philosophy on sales, on what I've learned about sales, on, just all the things that I've gathered as far as best practices for sales, and then to give it custom instructions for how to respond to somebody and how to actually assess their sales call and how to give feedback and advice. And I've done this with multiple sales call transcripts and I've shared it with multiple clients, and they're just like blown away by how helpful it is. I would so much rather spend time building an AI chatbot that does that than spending the time listening to people's sales calls and having to use my own brain to figure out what to tell people to do. So maybe that sounds funny because, again, like, I love working with clients. I honestly love coaching. I love having one-on-one clients. And that kind of stuff is stuff that I know is valuable to my clients, but I do not want to do it. So that's where I think using AI to figure out how can I replicate my expertise, my perspective, my thought leadership, and actually create stuff that supports my clients in a way that I actually would agree with and actually sounds like me and actually follows my guidelines and actually gives people the advice that I would have given them. And it would have taken me half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour to provide it to them. Whereas for the AI bot to give it, it takes 10 seconds. So honestly, if you're not using AI for that purpose in your business, you're totally behind. You should absolutely be doing that. It's something that I would even hope to start showing my clients how to do for their own businesses, because it has really, really changed our business dramatically. And I think it's a huge opportunity to serve people at a much more elevated level and also make your presence and your expertise way more scalable than it would be without this as a tool. So what this allows me to do is it allows me to spend my energy where it matters most, which is high-level coaching, really being there for my clients, being present, being in my full capacity as an expert in the moment when I'm talking to somebody, and really having that bigger picture strategy as well as the intuitive power that I know that I have. So I do find myself to be someone who just gets downloads for people, gets ideas, gets these intuitive hits that I can share with my clients. And AI is never going to replace that, right? So that is where I want to spend my best energy and my best time, is the stuff that AI really can't replace. And things like helping somebody get ideas about how to make their sales calls better is something that AI can absolutely do well, and probably even better than I can, and in a much faster way. Okay, so that's really the primary way that I started using AI. And now here's the two kind of more current and future ideas that I have about how I'm adapting to the rise of AI. What I'm doing right now is working through my offer, my messaging, my positioning, everything in my business from top to bottom, and really refining it for an elevated ideal client avatar. So you've probably heard of an ideal client avatar before. I think that term has been around for decades. It's probably one of the first things you learn when you're learning how to start an online business. And I've had pretty much the same avatar for several years now. I did pivot from being a nutrition business owner to a business coach officially in 2021. So I stopped taking any nutrition clients and went full on into the business coaching world in 2021 after about 2 years of mentoring other health experts in business. And I realized recently that my messaging was still speaking to the people that my clients were back in 2020 through 2022. And to be honest, the people that I work with, most of them, the person that they were 3 years ago is not even close to the person that they are now. Their business is nowhere near the same, what it was back then as it is now. Many of them have been in business long enough that the problems that they're running into are totally different than what a beginner business owner would be experiencing. And what I realized is that a lot of the messaging and content I had put out a few years ago, still good content, but it was speaking to a level of business owner that isn't necessarily the level that I want to work with moving forward in my business. So instead of building my paid offers for a beginner client, somebody who's brand new, needs a ton of education, needs a ton of handholding, honestly takes a while to get results because that's just the nature of business. You can't be an overnight success. So it takes a lot longer to get results when you're starting from zero. I honestly would rather have free content that serves those people or very low ticket courses, guides, that kind of thing. And with AI, the way that all of that's changing, honestly, I feel like most of that information that would be applicable to starting a business is going to be available for free online if it isn't already. So I don't want to be building my paid offers to cater to somebody who has those beginner starter questions like, how do I set up an LLC, or how do I get a bank account, or even things like picking your ideal client. At this point, a lot of that stuff is actually available for free, either through ChatGPT or somewhere on the internet, right? So a lot of times beginners, they just want to learn and they're not necessarily as willing to invest. They are more afraid to spend money on themselves, and they don't necessarily see the likelihood of an ROI from the investment that they are making. Which for me, back in like 2020, 2021, even 2022, the beginners really were very interested in buying. I think people had a lot more optimism about starting a business back then. They weren't as jaded by the business coaching industry. There's been a lot of people that I've worked with that had very poor experiences working with a business coach. So that is something that wasn't as big of a deal a few years ago. And so I know that for me, if I keep speaking to the beginner, it's going to actually hinder my business because now I'm talking to somebody who not only needs a lot of hand holding, but also is afraid to invest in themselves. And it's funny because I teach my clients to not talk to that kind of client, the person who is very afraid to spend money, like really thinks they can do it themselves, wants to save and penny pinch and do all of that to try to get the result on their own. And then when they finally do invest, it's like, oh my gosh, they take so much time and energy and attention to actually help. That's not what I teach my clients to do. So I realized that, oh my gosh, I'm doing that myself. I'm trying to convince beginner business owners about why they should want the business model that I teach. And it was sucking so much time and energy into the marketing and sales piece of my business. And we were attracting so many people who were like, oh, yeah, this is what I want. This is exactly like the result I want. This is the business I want. But then when it actually came to investing in themselves at an amount that when I look at what we provide in our program for what we're currently charging, it's a little ridiculous in my opinion, but we were still getting the price objection that people were afraid. Nobody said it was like too expensive. I think they all understood that the price was actually completely reasonable, if not probably low for what they were going to get. But it was expensive for them, which is the key thing here, right? Like somebody spending $5,000 on a program, if they're brand new to business, they're going to be a lot more afraid of doing that than somebody who's been in business for 3 years and makes, 50K, 80K a year and knows that, hey, when I invest in myself, I know I get results and I know I can make this something that gets me an ROI. So it was a tough decision for me because I actually really enjoy helping beginners. And what we do in the MBA program is honestly what I think beginners would benefit from. But I realized that we were making it a lot harder on me and my team to not only sell, but also to support people by trying to drag these beginners into the program. And then, to add insult to injury about that, if we speak too much to beginners because we're trying to encourage them, we actually then start to turn off the higher level clients because they aren't beginners. And then they start to perceive our program as a beginner level program, which it's not. And then the people who I really want to work with, which is the more advanced business owner who's got momentum and wants to earn more and wants to systematize and wants to really be in that CEO position in their business and not just a coach that works 40 hours a week. That person is now going to see this offer as being beneath them, which I know it's not. I'm the person who created it. But the messaging is telling that person that they're too advanced and that it would be a waste of their money. So I realized that we were having this problem really in the last few months, and now I'm doing the work that I need to do to shift it. And the reason why this is relevant to AI is because I really do think that moving forward, a lot of these entry-level type of programs are not going to sell anymore because people can get the information they would get from an entry-level program for free from AI. And even the coaching, honestly, it's kind of nuts. AI is not a bad coach. If you're a mediocre coach, AI can replace you. I'm just going to put it out there. And so creating a program that speaks to a more advanced, elevated avatar and also making sure that your skills are up to snuff and not something that could just easily be replaced by an AI chatbot, that is what is going to allow your business to survive this AI revolution. So we're doing it ASAP. I mean, I just know I have to do it regardless of the AI thing because I want to grow the business. I want to make more money. I want to really get excited about who we're working with. And I just realized we had kind of let the messaging stay stuck in the early 2020s and it needs to shift for 2025. So that is something we're doing right now. Full disclosure, the price will probably change pretty soon. So if you're listening to this and you want to work with me, you might want to reach out to me now because we're definitely going to be increasing the prices across the board for the business. But the other thing that this is going to affect is that I'm really committed to putting out more support and information for beginners in a much lower cost or free capacity. So I will say this podcast is not necessarily for a beginner, but I want people to be able to learn from me without necessarily having to pay me. That's always been my business model. And it's why I feel good about charging higher ticket prices because I know if somebody doesn't want to pay me, they can still get help from me through the content that I put out there. So I want to attract people who want proximity. They want access. They want perspective. They want to know what I would do in a specific situation, not just what any coach would do, but specifically me. They want to be mentored. They want to see leadership in action, which is even just being in my world, being in my energy. They will be able to see how I respond to things. And that will give them inspiration and empowerment to be able to go and act that way in their own business. These are the type of clients that don't want handholding. They don't want a 35-step plan that they have to follow step by step. They want that ability to get the support with what they're working on when they're working on it. And they specifically want my eyes and my strategic brain on their business. So that is what, like I said, I'm going through top to bottom through the business. We're not burning anything down, but I'm just refining pretty much every single piece of our funnel, of our messaging, of my positioning to make sure that we are speaking to this person who wants to be mentored by me. Now, that actually leads me into the third big shift, and that is going all in on my personal brand. So honestly, it's kind of ironic. I feel like the reason I even got to where I am in my business started because of creating a personal brand, creating that internet presence, establishing myself as a thought leader in the nutrition space. I've been doing this since I think I started my blog in 2011 and then started our podcast in 2013. So I have been putting content out in a thought leadership capacity for 12 plus years now, really going on 14 if we count the blog. And that was how I started my business. And I know that my trajectory as a thought leader, as a personal brand, when I had my babies and when I had almost this, like, I don't want to say identity crisis, but a little bit of an identity crisis, like, who am I? What do I care about? What do I want to do? What's worth my time? All of that stuff is now informing this evolution of my personal brand. So, an example of this evolution is this podcast. It used to be called the Fed and Fearless podcast, and now it's the Nourished CEO podcast. So, I'm actually going to be fully leaning into this Nourished CEO brand, really almost making it more like a movement even than just a personal brand or a logo. And everything that I do is going to center around this concept of being the CEO of your business, but also creating a business and a life that nourishes you. So taking care of yourself, making sure your nervous system is well supported, making sure you're eating enough, making sure you're taking time for yourself outside of your business, but also constructing your business in a way that supports your energy, supports your happiness, supports your financial goals, right? So all the stuff I've learned, partially through education, partially through trial and error, lots of error that I've been through that is informing this position, that is what is getting infused into this personal brand. And even just calling myself a business coach. Yes, I'm a business coach, but I'm elevating myself out of that role as a business coach and really stepping into that role as a mentor and a leader in the online space. And I feel like I've always been like that, but it's so easy to fall back on that coach title. And people look for a business coach, right? Like if you're just talking about SEO, people are searching for a business coach. So I I will probably always still refer to myself partially as a business coach, but I want to really start to step into that role publicly and energetically as a mentor and a leader and really a thought leader. And so this whole brand repositioning is part of that process. And the reason why this is relevant to AI is because AI cannot replicate a personal brand. There will always be the desire and demand for the personal brand, the personal perspective, the energetics of the leader, all of that. And I know that might sound a little woo, but I actually really believe that the person themselves and who they're being and how they're showing up is actually what draws people to them. And that is something that AI absolutely cannot replace. And to layer on top of that, the type of content that I want to put out needs to actually fully capture that energy. And that's why, honestly, I got back into the podcast. I took a break. You guys might know this. I took a break for a couple of years from podcasting, partially just because I don't want to say burnt out, but I was tired becoming a mom and then getting pregnant again. If you've done it, you know it's very tiring. And I just needed a break. So, it is what it is. I kind of wish I had gotten back into it sooner, but I'm here and speaking into a mic, you guys getting to hear my voice, getting to hear my energy, my inflection, my tone, just like the things I get passionate about. That is actually going to set me apart compared to somebody who is just pumping out a bunch of written content that maybe it was generated by AI. So my energy and my voice and my experience, my perspective, the problems that I've been through, the challenges I've overcome, the things that I've experienced, all of that is now the product. It is not necessarily the information that I can provide, the frameworks that I've built. Yes, those are helpful, but ultimately, I know that what's going to shift in the AI revolution is the people that make money in that industry are going to be the ones who show up as a thought leader with their full selves on display and who are really being visible and authentic in their energy, their voice, how they're speaking, what they're saying, all of that. And so that is where I am putting my energy and attention now. Hopefully ahead of the game. AI is changing so fast. My goal is to get ahead of these changes. And I'm hoping that this episode will give you some inspiration to get ahead of them too. But it is something where I just wanted to show you a peek behind the curtain to show you, okay, these changes that you're seeing between the name of the podcast, the fact that I'm coming back to podcasting, the changes that we're going to put into the MBA program, all of that stuff that's going to change is all driven partially for my own benefit to just be able to fall back in love with my business after kind of some tough seasons that I've been through. but also to get ahead of this shift in the industry that is driven by the introduction of AI. So, just to summarize, the three big ways that right now, at least, I'm adapting my business to the rise of AI. One, I'm using as much AI tools as I possibly can to help me disseminate myself and make myself more omnipresent between my marketing and my service for my clients, and to really just install AI into as much of our business operations as possible so that we don't need as much manpower to be able to run the business the way we want it to run and to reach the people we want to reach and to make sure we're serving our clients in the best way possible. Number two is elevating my ideal client to go beyond that beginner that just wants information and just wants checklists and just wants, give me the how-to steps and I'll just go do them, to really working with the people who are beyond that and want more of that perspective, mentorship, having somebody who's been through it, who they can talk to and really can trust their guidance, because ultimately AI is not real. It has not been through running a business, and any advice it gives you is based on what it's been programmed to give you and not actually through true experience. And then finally, I'm going all in on my personal brand. I'm leaning in fully into the Nourished CEO as the movement, as the brand. I'm even looking at, can we create merch? Can I make some clothes that have that logo? There's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about as far as turning this into more of an actual brand and not just a program. And to really start making myself and my personality, my energy, my voice to be the thing that people are paying for and not just paying for the programs that I've created. So yes, the tools and the programs are important, but it's not what people are going to ultimately pay for, because if they spend enough time on AI, they could probably figure out a lot of the educational piece without necessarily needing a mentor like me who has that perspective to share and has that experience to help guide the decisions that my clients are making so that they can get the fastest and best results possible. So, at the end of the day, AI is here. It's not going anywhere. If anything, it's just going to get more prevalent. It's totally changing the online landscape, and you can decide to get on board or not. If you don't get on board, your business is probably not going to exist in the next couple of years. I'm just going to be frank. But if you are getting on board, you want to get on board in a way that actually helps you win. So that is staying human first, putting yourself out as the leader and the face of your business is going to be much more powerful than hiding behind ChatGPT generated content. And adapting your approach to business to these changes is going to be what allows you to still be successful and even thrive in this new AI infused industry. So I hope that was helpful. It was a little bit of a just a off the cuff sharing how I feel about things right now. That's what I'm really trying to do with these episodes more, is just get you inside my head to see what I'm thinking about, how I'm thinking about things. Because again, the people who are going to work with me want this, and they want to know that they're working with someone who tells it like it is and has the experience and the history to back up what they're saying. Now, if you want to be mentored through this next era of business shakeup where AI is coming in and really changing the game for us, first of all, keep listening to this podcast. I'm going to keep showing up every week to share really great insight, perspective, guest experts who have their own perspective. So I'm really excited about what we're going to be creating with this podcast. And then, of course, if you want full access to my mentorship and my coaching, then I would invite you to apply for the Nourished Business Accelerator program, or potentially work with me one-on-one if that's the level of business that you are at and are ready for getting to that high multi-6 and 7-figure level in your business. That's it for me today. That's what I wanted to share with you. I hope you found this useful, and I'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. Take care, everyone.